In this video, I wanted to go over setting up a minimal Debian install with no desktop environment at all, and the steps you would take to get started with a tiling window manager as the only DE on the system. I recently purchased a capture card with HDMI pass-through, so I'll be setting this up on hardware. No virtual machines today. Let's get started. In the UEFI or BIOS, there are a couple things I want to check before booting into my Debian 10.3 USB. I wanted to make sure that SMT mode is turned on, which is simultaneous multithreading. This will give our Ryzen 5 1500X quad-core processor, just making sure that it has 4 cores and 8 threads enabled. The other is I wanted to make sure that my RAM's XMP profile is loaded. So my RAM is running at DDR4 2933. And also in the CPU configuration, I wanted to make sure that SVM mode was turned on as well. This will enable virtualization, so if I decide to install VirtualBox or GNOME boxes or QEMU, all of that will work. Other than that, that's really about it. Except right here for RGB LED, I wanted to make sure that that was turned off because RGB is dumb. Go ahead and hate me if you want, but it's just my opinion. RGB is dumb. And here we're going to change the boot option. So boot option 1, we're going to make that the UEFI USB. I'm going to make that partition 2. And now that's really about all we had to do in the BIOS. Let's save and exit, and let's go into our Debian 10.3 USB. All right, and we are in the Debian 10 USB installer. We're just going to go through a quick graphical install, and we should be done in just a few minutes. And if you've never installed Debian before, I'll just kind of go through the process pretty quickly. But this is going to be very easy, very straightforward. It's not going to take very long at all. So for me, of course, I speak English. We're just going to hit enter. I'm in the United States. Enter again. I have an American English keyboard. Enter again. So far, so good. For my host name, I'm going to name it, Debian's fine. Domain name, we're going to leave alone. I'm not going to give myself a root password because the root password, when you set up a Debian install, if you do not set a root password, the system's initial user account will be given power to become root using the sudo command. So I'm not going to set up a root password on this machine. I'm going to name myself Mike. User account is Mike. Set up a password and let it run from there. I'm in the Central Time Zone. We're going to do guided use entire disk. I have a 240 gig Kingston drive. I have a 4 terabyte hard drive, but that has a lot of data already on it. So I'm not going to be using that one. And the 32 gig PNY is actually my install USB. So I'm going to choose a 240 gig Kingston. I'm going to create a separate home partition. And then we're going to finish partitioning and write changes to the disk. It's going to set up partition 1 as ESP for my UEFI environment, ext4 for my root, a swap partition and another ext4 partition for my home folder. All that looks good, so we're going to arrow down to yes and write changes to the disk. And this is probably going to take a little bit, so I'm just going to let this run. I will probably fast forward through a lot of it. We do want to use a network mirror. United States is good for me, and deb.debian.org. If you don't know what you need to pick here, this one is usually a good choice. It even says so up here in the title. I'm not going to use a proxy. And I think I will participate in the package survey. Now here is where we're going to choose the desktop environments or lack thereof that we're going to install. So I'm going to hit the space bar. I'm not going to install any of these desktop environments, but I will install the SSH server. Then we can just tab over to continue and press enter. And since we're not installing a desktop environment, this is going to go pretty quickly. And our installation is complete, so I'm going to tab and hit continue. All right, and here we are booted into Debian Buster with no desktop environment at all. So I'm going to log in with the user that I created earlier. All right, and the first thing I want to do is check and make sure sudo works. Sudo apt update. I'm sure it will work. And it looks like I need to edit my sources.list file. So let's do sudo nano etc apt sources.list. And here, for the deb cd-rom debian gnu linux 10.3 buster official AMD 64 DVD binary, I want to comment this out. Then come down to the end of the first few, the rest of the lines here where I have main. I want to add contrib and non-free. And then we're going to do Control X to exit, Y for yes, and enter. And we can clear the screen and do sudo apt update again. All right, and then sudo apt upgrade. Okay, so we are fully updated and ready to rock. All right, let's clear the screen again. Now, to install a window manager, we first need to get X installed onto the system. For this, let's do sudo apt install xorg xserver xorg. There's an NVIDIA card in this system, so let's do NVIDIA detect xutils Mesa utils and xinit. All right, and since that's done, now let's run NVIDIA detect. I don't think I have to be sudo. Okay, it says I need to install the NVIDIA dash driver. So sudo apt install NVIDIA-driver. Okay, conflicting Novu kernel module loaded. The free Novu kernel is currently loaded with and conflicts with the non-free NVIDIA kernel module. The easiest way to fix this is to reboot the machine once the installation is finished. Okay. We're going to do sudo apt install firmware Linux. We're just going to install the firmwares and the non-free firmwares while we're at it. All right, and now let's install our window manager and a few other utilities to make sure that we're going to have a complete working system, and then edit our xnetRC file. So the window manager that I want to use today is kind of an esoteric one. I want to use Spectre WM. I've been playing around with this window manager for a few months now in my spare time, and I've really enjoyed it. It is a dynamic tiling window manager, kind of like DWM and Xmonad, but it has a plain text file config, and it's pretty great. I'm gonna probably make another video about Spectre WM and configuring it, but right now I'm just going to show how to get going with this on Debian. So we're going to do sudo apt install Spectre WM. We're going to need dmenu. Let's do LX appearance. We're going to need a terminal, so let's do RXVT Unicode. Let's do xterm as a fallback. Let's do nitrogen. Let's see, a web browser, Firefox -ESR. Thunar for our file manager. We're going to install a theme. Let's do Materia GTK theme, and let's do an icon set. Let's see the Deepen icon theme, and we're going to let that go. All right, and now that that's done, let's do the xnetRC. So we're just going to do echo exec space Spectre WM into home/.x init.rc. And now we can reboot. Let's log back in. And let's do Startx. And here we are in Spectre WM. Let's fire up a terminal. And we're going to do sudo apt install xrender. Already there, so let's do, and now let's get Git and Vim installed on the system. So sudo apt, I want to clear the screen, sudo apt install Git and Vim. and I really don't like the way we have a this white background. It's kind of glaring, so let's fix that. Let's do git clone https github.com/linuxdabbler/personal.files. So I have my extra sources file here. We're going to, let's cat extra sources into home/.x defaults. Now we're going to exit out of that. That is much better. So let's git clone https github.com/linuxdabbler/Debian dialog install script. Then we can do chmod plus x dialog.sh. And this here is actually just a simple little script I wrote to make installing stuff on Debian a little bit easier. So I'll just kind of run through it real quick. The first one will give the standard user root access if you created a root password. This one will enable contribute non-free repos. This one will return you to the original sources.list. This one will give you the Liquorix kernel, which is the newest custom kernel from the Liquorix project. Let's see, let's do snap packages, flatpak. Let's put synaptic on the system, pip. Let's do vim. Let's do genie. Compression, decompression, utilities, UFW. I'm just going to do we're just going to do something really minimal here. htop, parted, curl, wget, ranger, build essential, ssh, your already got your xvt. Let's do transmission, Samba. Already have the NVIDIA driver. Pulse Audio, Microsoft fonts, Ubuntu fonts. Oh, just Ubuntu fonts. You can do FE, GIMP, Inkscape, Digicam, Handbrake, Kdenlive, VLC. But I'm just gonna, if I do all of these, this script is going to take forever to run. So I'm just going to skip over most of it, because you can install Steam, Lutris, a bunch of different file managers, Nitrogen, Variety, LX Appearance. We're going to make our Qt apps match GTK. And here I was kind of messing around with Polybar about having it automatically build from source, but I still need to tweak it a little bit. Let's see, exfat utils, swappiness 10, and clean up and update. And I'm just going to let that run. So I will pause the recording and come back when everything's finished. And that finished properly, so let's exit out of here. And we're going to fire up D menu and go to Nitrogen. And that's about all I've got for today. I just kind of wanted to show how to do a minimal Debian install with a tiling window manager as the only desktop environment. And since Arch usually gets all the love in that department, so Debian is my distribution of choice, and I just wanted to show that it could be done as well, and actually a little bit easier on Debian than it is in Arch. And if you wanted to take a look at the script that I used to install a lot of that software, I'm going to link that down in the description. So if you're interested in that, by all means, take a look. You can use anything you want out of it. So with that being said, thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe. See y'all in the next one.